What if the next strike against Trump doesn't come from Tehran, but from Beijing? Just pause for a second and think about that. What if the most powerful bomb in America's arsenal has just become the biggest intelligence gift to its rivals? Tonight, we're not looking at a simple headline. We're uncovering a chain of events, one that could reshape the balance of power in the Middle East and possibly the world. The story begins with a warning. Accept Iran's conditions at the negotiating table, or face consequences reminiscent of 2011. But this time, the threat isn't framed as a missile launched from Iranian soil. It's framed as something far more unsettling. A strategic shift that places China at the center of the storm. After the intense 12-day war that left visible destruction across Iran, many expected Tehran to emerge weakened. Instead, Iranian officials claimed something very different. They said they had exposed deep vulnerabilities inside Israel's security infrastructure. According to their narrative, sensitive military and intelligence sites were identified. Even high-profile locations were targeted by drones. Now, whether exaggerated or not, the psychological impact of those claims echoed far beyond the region. Then came the bomb. President Trump publicly announced strikes on what were described as dangerous Iranian nuclear sites, using one of America's most powerful bunker-buster weapons, the GBU-57. A massive ordnance penetrator, roughly 13 tons, reportedly capable of piercing deep reinforced concrete and rock before detonation. It was presented as a demonstration of overwhelming superiority. But here's the uncomfortable question. What if superiority turns into liability? Iran's foreign minister later stated that unexploded bombs had been found at nuclear facilities following the conflict. More controversially, he claimed that one of the GBU-57 bombs had been recovered intact, disarmed, and secured by Iranian forces, with the clear implication that it could now be studied through reverse engineering. At first glance, it sounded like routine wartime propaganda. But in Washington, the implications were anything but routine. If even parts of that claim were true, it would mean that decades of classified weapons technology could now be analyzed outside the Pentagon's control. Congressional scrutiny began intensifying. Questions surfaced about why the United States entered the confrontation, and what strategic gains were actually achieved. Yet the deeper fear wasn't that Iran would study the weapon. The deeper fear was that Iran wouldn't keep it. Because if that technology were transferred to China, a global leader in reverse engineering and military adaptation, the consequences could ripple across every future battlefield. Analysts began speculating that Beijing could gain insights into American penetration capabilities, materials science, guidance systems, and structural design. In geopolitical terms, that would be priceless. Suddenly, China was no longer a distant observer. Military experts began describing the possibility of Beijing entering the conflict through official channels. Not with troops, but with technology exchanges, air defense systems, intelligence cooperation, strategic backing. Reports of increased Chinese aircraft activity near Iran only amplified speculation that deeper coordination might already be underway. Then came a carefully worded message from Beijing. Escalating nuclear threats against Iran would only worsen the situation. Diplomatic language on the surface. But underneath, a signal. A signal that China would not remain passive if the conflict spiraled further. Meanwhile, negotiations shifted to Oman. A week passed after the first round of talks, and Tehran remained silent about the outcome. Iran's supreme leader framed negotiations not as a path to resolution, but as a tool to buy time. At the same time, military positioning continued. American aircraft carriers moved into place. Iran reportedly mapped potential targets at US bases in the Gulf and deep inside Israeli territory. Each side escalated rhetorically. Each side prepared militarily. And yet, no decisive strike followed.
Instead, something else happened. The threat environment grew so complex that every option became dangerous. Conventional escalation risked regional war. Strategic retreat risked political humiliation. And the nuclear option, once considered unthinkable, began to enter public debate as a hypothetical last resort to preserve deterrence credibility. But here's where the equation changes. If China and Russia are waiting for a defining moment, and if Beijing signals that nuclear escalation would legitimize Iran's right to pursue its own deterrent capabilities, then any drastic move by Washington could accelerate a multipolar confrontation far beyond the Middle East. In that scenario, the battlefield is no longer Tehran or